Hello guys, in this video let us learn about the display property, position property, overflow, float and inline block properties in CSS. So first let us start with the display properties. So let me apply the display property on the paragraph. So the display property by default is a block, which means display the paragraph element is true. If we say display none, then the paragraph element will be completely removed from the HTML document. So if you want to hide or remove the any of the HTML elements, then we can say display none. So there is another property called and there are many other values except display block and display in none. We have inline, display inline and display inline block. So for example, if a paragraph are the block elements, as we know, if we say them as inline, then they will be displayed as a inline element. So see, so we know that the block elements forces line breaks. Now that we have declared the paragraph as an inline element, the button which is also the link, which is also an inline element, came here. So if you remove that, if we say as block, then automatically the link element goes here, which so the paragraph element, which is a block element, which it will enforces line break. So and the next thing is we saw that if we say display none, then the paragraph element has been completely removed from the HTML document. But in vice versa, if we say visibility as hidden, then it will hide the element, but it will still occupy the space of the paragraph element will be occupied. It is not removed from the HTML document, but it is just hidden. So that's the difference between the display none and the visibility hidden properties. So next next we will see about the position property. So let us take the h1 element. So we will define the position attribute and say static. So static is the default position value, and it will not affect the HTML document. But if is and it will not be affected by the other CSS properties such as left, right. So we will say left 50 pixels, but still the h1 element is not affected. So that's so the default value for the position property is static. If we change that to relative, then the position of the h1 is set to relative, and from its original position it will be moved to the 50 pixels to the left. So if you see here, so that's what happened. Now that we have set the position to relative, so the h1 element has been moved 50 pixels from the to the left of its original position. Now if we say top as 150 pixels, then now what will happen, it will be moved 50 pixels to the left and 150 pixels from the top. So that's what happened here, and now the h1 element has been relatively positioned from its original position 50% to the left and 150 pixels from the top. So the another thing is fixed fixed positioning. In fixed positioning also will be affected by the left, top, right and bottom attributes, and but in this case, it floats, and then even though you scroll down the page, it will remain on the viewport. So to demonstrate that example, we will extend the page so that the scroll comes up. So we'll add yep, if you see in here, even though you scroll, the position of this h1 element is fixed. So the another attribute value of position is absolute positioning. So in absolute positioning, unlike fixed positioning, so it has been positioned uh, 50 pixels to the left and 150 pixels from the top, and it will move along. If you scroll the page, it will move along the page. But in case of fixed positioning, the container will stay there. Even though you scroll the page, it will not move along with the page. So this is the positioning property in CSS. Next, we will see about the overflow property. I'll remove this one. So I will define. So we will remove this extra paragraphs that we have introduced. And now let me define the width and height of for the paragraph. Width, let us say 100 pixels, and height, let's say 100 pixels. Now that we have introduced the sorry and height. Now that we have introduced the width and height for the paragraph, so the width is this is the paragraph element. If you see this blue color box, so that's the width and height of, but it has been overflown. So maybe like we will increase width a little bit to say 500 pixels. Now you can clearly see this is the paragraph element, but the text is more, so that it is overflowing here. So here now we will say the overflow property. So but the default overflow property is visible, so that's what is happening here. So if we say visible, so it still remains the same, but if we say hidden, overflow hidden means like the whatever the content which is overflowing on top of the, so what which cannot be accommodated inside the 500 pixels width and 100 pixel height will be hidden. So even though there are some more text to this paragraph, the user cannot see it, since we set the overflow as a hidden property. If we set to scroll, then a scroll bar will appear in the horizontal and vertical position, so that the user can read the entire content. And there is another thing called auto. If you say overflow is auto, it will automatically adjust the scroll or whatever. If it wants a scroll in x axis or y axis, it will automatically come. So that's the overflow property. And next we will see about the float property. So here we have the two lists, ordered and unordered list. For we will use that list and we'll say float left. So once we say float left, automatically the list has been floated, the unordered list has been floated to left, and we will say the same to the ordered list as well. Say float left. So now both the lists are floating to the left, and so see here, since we made these containers to the float left, there is a bit of in orientation in the link. So to fix that one, so before that I'll introduce the paragraph to show you clearly what is happening. So so these, since we made these two ordered and unordered list to float, so there is a misorientation in the paragraph after that and a link before that. So this is a problem with the float. So to clear this problem, we have to create a class called clearfix. I'm naming it clearfix. You can say whatever you want, and we just have to say clear both. So it will clear the it will clear the float. So now since we introduced the float property to these things, what we have to do is like we have to introduce a empty div, and we have to apply the class clearfix, and similarly we have to apply it here. So now everything will be sorted out, even though these two lists are floating to the left. So now the link and the paragraph after that is rendered properly. So that's float. And instead of float, what the other thing also we can do is like, so I'm removing the clearfix class here, and instead of saying float, I'll say display inline block. Display inline block. So now again the same results have been achieved instead of using float. So now, since we know that the or a list element is a block element, since we say it as a we define it as an inline block, so it inherit the inline property, and then it is acting as an inline element so that it doesn't enforce line breaks. So now the link and this thing list, order list and unordered list are displaying in the same line. So the other thing is like span. We know that span is also an inline element. If you, and for the inline elements we can't define the height and width, but if we declare as them as an inline block, then we can set the height and width of the span elements also. And thank you guys, that's it for the video, and we will see about some more CSS properties in the next video. Thank you.